Hi everyone, welcome. We're out here at my worm bag in my yard. This is my only real managed outdoor system. I mean, I do have my compost barrel where I do actually recruit worms from. For example, when we launched this system 182 days ago, we recruited worms from my compost barrel. And if you do some quick math, 182 days is exactly 26 weeks. That's exactly 1/2 of a year. So this system today is now a half a year old. And as we see once in a while, some sort of creature came by here and took advantage of the fact that there's these little gaps and openings around the plywood top covering. And sometimes the little creatures will reach in there and try to scoop out a little tasty meal, leaving a little bit of the stuff that they've scooped out here as evidence of their visit. And my only hope is that they're not very successful in scooping out too many worms. I mean, I would imagine that this plywood cover does provide a fair bit of protection against that sort of invasion, but clearly not impervious to it, as you can see. I was a little disappointed with the last check-in. The last check-in was 12 days ago. It was a really bright, sunny day, and I made the mistake of allowing the bright sunshine to really throw off the exposure. So a lot of the stuff we were trying to see was very much kind of darkened out due to the large amount of bright spots here and there throughout the image. Today I think we're in much better shape for a somewhat better quality video since there's no sun. It's very cloudy and it was raining, I would say, for the past 3 days, maybe 4 days even. It was just raining non-stop. So I've got a feeling we're going to find a good bit of moisture down here within this system, which I'm sure the worms are going to really enjoy. In the past, we've come in here and we found that a certain amount of moisture had sort of rolled off that plywood top covering and sort of collected inside of this fabric, and then we found little pockets of worms hanging out on the fabric. Today I'm not seeing that. So we were kind of on a bedding kick over the past 3 check-ins, and so, you know, last check-in I believe it was leaves, and the check-in prior to that I believe it was paper, and then the check-in prior to that it was cardboard, and a good bit of it on each occasion. So we were very generous with the bedding over the past 3 check-ins, and you know, this time I just don't even have any on me, and it seems like it doesn't matter so much, right? Because look at all this dry leafy matter. Amazing to me that this is dry after all that rain we got over the past few days. I see some signs of green over here, some sort of mold even attempting to grow. So I think we're going to be okay without the addition of any more bedding today. Doesn't mean we're never going to add any more. Although, you know, at 6 months of age, and the fact that we're now near the end of the month of September, I've been shying away lately from maintaining these outdoor systems over winter style like I originally started doing them. Originally it all started out as a test to see if I can manage an overwinter outdoor system and have the worms survive and thrive, but I always found that the cold weather really causes the worms to just kind of hunker down and protect themselves against the really cold temperatures, and at the same time they're not very productive when it comes to breaking down my kitchen scraps and stuff like that. So from a composting perspective, things slow considerably as well. So last year, even though I did start out an overwintering kind of, I don't even know if I started it as an overwintering test, but it was just the ongoing maintenance of the outdoor worm bag, led to a certain point during the winter last year when it got very cold, and I just decided, you know what, let's bring these little guys inside, give them a break from the cold, let them warm up and become productive again. And I'm kind of leaning towards doing something similar again this season. Not really trying to push things into the frigid winter temperatures, but rather drive the system to a completion at some point prior to the point at which the real cold temperatures set in, and then kind of introduce these worms that have been living in this system now for 6 months to the population that I keep downstairs in my basement, in my wormery. So that's just my thinking on how to play it again this year, similar to what I did last year. I guess the only thing I'm a little puzzled about is that the one half of the mango seed, you can see here, it's a pretty good clean cut through the middle of this mango seed when I had separated it into two halves, and it was always the other half, the more torn open half. This is the half that kind of remained as more of a pocket, if you will. It was always the other half that was torn open that we managed to bump into all the time, never finding that one right there. Oddly enough, though, this time we stumbled on the elusive one today, and now the other one is kind of playing hide and seek with us, not letting me find it. Alright, let me just move all these leftover foods. Mango seed, and the rest of it is all just corn cob. This is one section where I started piling the food up that I didn't really have a chance to blend in the leafy material, so I figured let's give this section a little stir as well. Perhaps that's where the other mango husk, or whatever it is, mango seed husk, might be hiding from us. I don't see it. I guess the other thing I was sort of casually looking for as I was plowing through here was this one really fat worm that we introduced to the system last time we were in here 12 days ago. I had moved the system aside from its location on the ground, and right beneath it I usually find a number of worms, and usually it's just worms that are from this system that manage to sneak out somehow and end up on the ground, I believe. I don't know, I'm not even sure about that, but there was one oddball worm in the crowd that just didn't seem like the rest of the small size composting worms. It was this really fat, presumably an earthworm. I think after I watched the video I could see how its head sort of was like a I think the earthworms, sort of their head flattens out a little bit to give them better penetrating capability into the material that they're trying to burrow through. So I think that kind of revealed what type of a worm that was. Just your typical earthworm, not one of our composting worms. But it was there with the rest of them, and I introduced it into here to keep these little guys company. Maybe it just got sick of being here and left. I don't know what it did, but I can't say I saw it, although for a moment I thought I might have caught a glimpse of it, and then it was gone, so I don't even know for sure if that was the case. So alright, we definitely didn't plan on putting any bedding in today, but we do plan on giving them a fairly generous portion of food, perhaps even double what they would normally get for whatever reason. I'm just sort of in overload mode right now in my freezer, so I'm looking to liquidate inventory in the freezer and feed the stuff to the wormies. This is just a huge pile of potato peel, and the stuff did manage to sort of freeze together into a somewhat tough, hard block, which I'm going to attempt to break apart to a certain degree. I was even thinking about grabbing a gardening tool that I see off in the distance, perhaps a spade, or perhaps one of those weed pulling things, but you know what, it might not even be so important that we dislodge all this food from itself. If it remains in just a big lump and the worms are eventually able to access it as the stuff thaws out, that should be fine as well. I mean, it is a little bit chilly. The weather has definitely cooled off, so I'm out here wearing long pants, long sleeve shirt, socks, shoes. My guess is that the last time I was out here I was probably in shorts and sandals. So the temperature has really cooled off quite a bit lately. I think it's supposed to warm up again. I think we're just in a little bit of a cold spell right now. I think we're just experiencing the effects of a kind of a offshore storm that recently blew through. So it'll warm up again. So I don't think putting that big huge block of frozen material down into the worm bin should cause us any issues. At least I hope not. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. Alright, we've had a pretty good chance to examine the entire contents of the system. Things look really nice. We had a chance to dislodge a lot of that dry bedding that was all just sitting there in a big pile and mix it all in. So in a way they are getting bedding. It was just bedding that had been introduced previously but was still so dry that it really could never have been of any use to the worms. But at this point I think by blending it all in, I think it's actually going to become quite beneficial to the worms. And I guess the only other thought that I had was, is it possible, I don't know, to somehow cover this thing in a way that it can prevent intrusion? One thing that I was doing on occasion, and I guess we could try that again today, is to sort of position the plywood cover in such a way that it's not resting on the surface of the material below it, but sort of hovering above it by being pried up against the walls of the fabric bag. So I sometimes set it up that way. I don't even know if perhaps just the weight of the little visiting creature is enough to push it down and kind of invalidate my countermeasures here, but it's worth a try, I guess, right? This way it's probably a good 4, 5, 6 inches, really limiting their ability to dig down into the material. If they're still able to reach down past it, hopefully they won't be able to reach worms and excavate too much material. So we'll just have to see how it works, if it works. Alright everyone, that's it for our check-in with our outdoor worm bag. Feeding number 17 going in now on day 182. 6 months in service. Things doing really nice in here from what I can tell. And perhaps at some point soon we'll just sort of let the system ride, let them start really breaking down a lot of the surplus bedding that's floating around in here, and then maybe start thinking about gearing up the system to haul it inside. Maybe even separate the worms from their material and introduce these worms to the colony that lives down in my basement in my worm ring. I don't know, I got a little bit of thinking to do, a little bit of sorting out of my options and figure out what I really want to do with this system, but that's probably the front runner on what I'd like to do with this. Alright everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. Alright everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now.